cordial while an fáilte report gatain go dtí an ócáid íonta seo. Mayor, Ambassador, Minister, elected officials, colleagues and guests. Good morning all. My name is Kenny Deary, CEO of Galway Chamber, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to this event entitled Joining the Dots. I'd like to advise you all that this event is being recorded. There are a number of components to this, but the core of today is the launching of a report focused on the enterprise, trade, academic and research opportunities that potentially exist between Mayo and Galway and the Leeds Bradford region of the UK. Now, this is a good news story in the backdrop of all else that is happening at present with Brexit negotiations ongoing. I won't get into Brexit, as we could spend not just hours, but days focusing on same. And rest assured, there are many bright people intensely working towards a solution to that at the moment. To begin, I would like to hand over to His Excellency, British Ambassador Paul Johnston, for opening remarks. Ambassador, over to you.
Kenny, thank you very much. Thank you to you and all your team at the Galway Chamber of Commerce for partnering with us to host this important event today. And I'd like to start with, I'm very sorry not to be with you in beautiful Galway on this lovely December morning, but as soon as COVID restrictions permit in the new year, I look forward to getting there and meeting you and your colleagues in person. I'd also like to thank Minister Naughton for her participation today and her support. And I'd particularly like to thank Jonathan Levy and his team at NUI Galway for producing the excellent report that, as you said, we are launching today. And it's great to be opening this new instalment of Joining the Dots with Galway and Mayo. The aim of the programme is to drive new connections between Britain and Ireland at a civic and community level, creating linkages between businesses, between researchers, and between people generally. And it's in that wider context that you mentioned as we wait for the outcome of the UK-EU negotiation. Some might think this is a strange time to be talking about new connections. But in fact, the driving concept behind the Joining the Dots programme is that the UK and Ireland are and will remain each other's nearest neighbours. And that however the UK's relationship with the EU evolves in the years to come, there's going to be a huge amount that we will be sharing and that we can learn from each other, whether on important issues like future trends in business, smart manufacturing or cyber, or indeed how our cities and regions are adapting to the response to COVID-19 and to the better, more resilient societies that our governments both want to build as we come out, God willing, of the COVID crisis early next year. It's 2 years since we launched the Joining the Dots programme in Cork with Foreign Minister Simon Coveney. And in that time, it supported the formation of new partnerships between UK and Ireland with people and businesses from Cork, from Kerry and Limerick, joining up with people and businesses in Coventry, Birmingham and Wales across the United Kingdom. And what we've learned from the first phases of this exercise is that as both of our countries seek rightly to look around the world for the best experience in dealing with some of the challenges of today and tomorrow, it's important to remember what's right here on our doorstep. We may know about developments in California and Idaho and China and India, but perhaps we don't know as much as we might do about what's happening in the neighbouring countries, in Galway or in Glasgow. And there are strengths in your region, I know, that are extraordinary by any standard, and the same applies to nations and regions in the UK. Scotland, for example, is a leader in the creative industries, not least gaming. Grand Theft Auto was created in Dundee. The adaptation of Philip Pullman's Dark Materials novels, currently on the BBC, was filmed in Wales, by the Welsh TV studio Bad Wolf. And we know because of the sad events of this past year, just how much high-class manufacturing and technology is in the Galway region. I think half of the world's ventilators were manufactured in Galway at the outbreak of the COVID-19 crisis. And 8 of the world's top 10 med tech companies have an actual physical presence in your region. Well, there are partners waiting for you in the UK, not least in the Leeds Bradford area. Leeds has the largest concentration of med device companies in the UK, and almost a quarter of all the UK's jobs in the burgeoning digital health sector are in that region. These are remarkable statistics, but it's not only about business. these industries are supported, and it's no coincidence, by world-class research centres on both sides of the Irish Sea. For example, you'll know better than me, the SFI Curum Centre for Medical Devices in Galway, and in the case of Leeds, the EPSRC Medical Technologies Innovation and Knowledge Centre. Bit of a mouthful, but also a fantastic organisation. I know we'll hear a summary of the report from Jonathan in a few minutes, so I don't want to steal his sandwiches, as it were. But I think it's really clear that there's a lot that we in the UK should learn from what you have done in Galway and Mayo's world-class cluster in the medtech and creative industries, both of which are absolutely industries of the future. And I hope there's also stuff that you can learn from us about the experience in the Leeds-Bradford region that we'll be hearing more about this morning. So I particularly welcome the engagement from our partners in the Leeds-Bradford city region, and we hope that today's event will just be the start of building and bolstering an enduring relationship between that region and Galway and Mayo. The twinning of Bradford and Galway and the many family links between the two cities already gives today considerable resonance. And from a business and research perspective, the Leeds City region is the home to NHS Digital, and it offers huge potential for connections in the very important future-facing sector of digital health. I'll leave with a thank you and a wish, in fact, two wishes. The thank you is just to thank again everyone involved in my own team in the Embassy, in the Galway Chamber, in NUI Galway, in the Leeds-Bradford regional authorities for their help in today's event. And the wishes are, first of all, to wish everyone, after what's been an extraordinarily difficult year, a fantastic Christmas and a happy and healthy 2021, including in taking forward this really important relationship between the Galway-Mayo region and the Leeds-Bradford region. And finally, perhaps more parochially, to those in the virtual audience who will be supporting Mayo in Saturday evening's big match at Croke Park. I know, not least because talking to friends here, I know the odds are stacked against you, it seems. I know it's been a long time since the last time, but I think in the year of extraordinary things, let us hope for a really fantastic match, and may the best team win on Saturday. And may a lot of great things come out of this report and this event today. So Kenny, thank you very much, and back to you.
Very good. Thank you, Ambassador. It's no secret I'm from Mayo myself, so I will pass on your good wishes. Also, I want to wish you the very best, because I know later in the morning or afternoon you're meeting Taoiseach Micheál Martin, and now more than ever, diplomacy is critically important, and I don't envy your task, but I wish you the very best with that meeting. So thank you, Ambassador. Our next speaker is no stranger to many of us. Minister of State at the Department of Climate Action and Transport, Deputy Hildegard Naughton.
Thank you very much for your invitation to speak this morning at this very important event. And I want to especially welcome His Excellency, the British Ambassador, Mr. Paul Johnson, and members of both Galway City and County Council. The familiar refrain in recent years is that the world is getting smaller with the advance in technology, and so it is. However, we must never lose sight of our nearest neighbours and friends across the Irish Sea. In that light, I want to thank the Ambassador for the Embassy's good work in creating the Joining the Dots initiative, and particularly for commissioning this piece of research. The authors, Professor Jonathan Levy and Dr. Magella Giblin of the Kearns School of Business at NUI Galway, deserve much credit for presenting us with the possibilities for greater economic ties between the west of Ireland and regions in the UK. One of the key findings of the report particularly struck me. Leeds City region has strong similarities with Galway and Mayo, with its strengths in medtech and in digital and creative industries, including games. This is all the more striking in 2020, the year in which the Leeds Irish Centre celebrates the 50th anniversary of its opening. Leeds, in fact, became known to the diaspora as Mayo Town. Anna Walsh, a PhD student at the Institute of Irish Studies at the University of Liverpool, has spent much of the last 5 years at the centre speaking to Irish people who have made their home in Leeds in the last half century. In her thesis, she says, for a lot of manual labourers making the trip across the water, the road literally ended in Leeds, with many settling in the city after the completion of the M1 motorway from London in 1968. The report being launched today notes that given the risks to trade between the UK and Ireland caused by Brexit, including exchange rate volatilities, widening information exchange on issues such as innovation and entrepreneurship, ecosystem management could bring short-term benefits to both parties while revealing longer-term trading opportunities. I just want to echo what our Minister for Foreign Affairs said earlier this year in regard to Brexit. Ireland's bilateral relationship with the UK is and will remain of vital importance. It's based on deep ties of friendship and family, our common European heritage and values, ties that are deeply cherished. Our two nations are so deeply intertwined as a result of generations of personal contacts and interaction. Some 700,000 people from the island of Ireland live in towns and cities the length and breadth of Great Britain. Several millions more are Irish citizens by descent. Tens of thousands travel back and forth between the UK and Ireland every single week, and the London-Dublin air corridor is the busiest in Europe and the second busiest in the world. The common travel area, which has long enabled profound connection between our countries, was last year protected through a memorandum of understanding between both governments. British and Irish citizens will continue to move freely, to live, to study, to work in any corner of these islands. British citizens resident in Ireland will be free to vote in our upcoming general election, a reciprocal privilege afforded to Irish citizens in the UK. Given the report's content, I want to briefly say a few words on the medtech and pharma sector and its importance to the west of Ireland. Ireland's medtech sector has become one of the leading clusters for medical device products globally. Exports of medical devices and diagnostic products now represent 8% of Ireland's total merchandise exports. Medtech in Galway is fast-paced and responsive. In light of the COVID-19 crisis, Medtronic in Galway increased the production of ventilators to meet worldwide demand for the life-saving devices from 200 ventilators a week at the end of February to more than 1,000 a week by the end of June. Allergan's campus in Westport, County Mayo, is the largest and most complex plant in the company's network and includes a pharmaceutical facility, 2 biologics plants and an ocular implant facility. It's responsible for the global supply of Botox. International trade between different countries is an important factor in raising living standards, providing employment and enabling consumers to enjoy a greater variety of goods. So is the mutually beneficial sharing of ideas and strategies in helping our regions to grow and prosper. There are towns and villages all over Ireland where you will see at the approach a sign informing the traveller that they are twinned with a similar town or village on the European continent. The same applies in the UK. In fact, one of the first recorded twinning links in Europe was established in 1920 between Keighley, West Yorkshire, and Poix du Nord in Pas-de-Calais. That's after the First World War. Town twinning as an official relationship builder started in Europe after the Second World War. The idea was simple: repair damaged relationships, encourage people from these areas to meet, mix, and get along. That's why town twinning at its core is a good and important thing. I see this project as the furtherance to that concept and something that will keep us close to our nearest neighbours. I very much welcome the publication of this report, and I look forward to visiting the UK and developing closer economic ties as soon as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Naughton. And what becomes clear in the conversations that we've had so far, and as this evolves, is the importance of diaspora that you referred to. Now, as the Ambassador mentioned, Minister for Foreign Affairs Simon Coveney had been involved in the Joining the Dots initiative from the beginning, and he wanted to participate in this event. However, regretfully, with Brexit negotiations, I think it's fair to say that he is busy. However, we received comments from the Minister. He has welcomed this initiative and in particular commends the plans to advise commercial engagement between Galway and Mayo and Leeds Bradford. As you know, the Minister announced on the 16th of November that planning is proceeding for the establishment of a new Consulate General of Ireland for the North of England in 2021. This new Consulate General will be situated in Manchester, but it will serve the entire North of England region, including Leeds City region. The Minister welcomes the Galway Chamber's commitment to developing ties and economic relationships with regions across Great Britain. The development of the British-Irish relationship is a priority in the programme for government, while strengthening the East-West trading relationship will be important for Ireland's ongoing economic growth and prosperity. The Minister has asked me to convey his thanks for the work on this valuable initiative with the British Embassy and INUI Galway, and he wishes you every success with the launch of the report. Now, our next speaker has really done the heavy lifting in terms of providing the content and the backdrop for today, along with his colleague, Dr. Majella Giblin. I will now hand over to Professor of Entrepreneurship and Regional Development at INUI Galway, Professor Jonathan Levy. Professor, over to you.
Thanks very much, Kenny, and hello, everybody. I'm just going to share a screen here. Here we go. Right. So I'd like to take the next 10 minutes or so to give you a high-level picture of our report to the British Embassy on business clusters in Galway, Mayo, and the UK. And before I start, I'd like to acknowledge my co-authors, Dr. Majella Giblin, who is an expert in the evolution of the medtech cluster in and around Galway, and also my colleague in Aston University, Professor Mark Hart, who's the Deputy Director of the Enterprise Research Centre in the UK. So let me start with, just before I do start, if I could just mention that the report is now available for download at whitaker.ie. So I'm just going to try and move to the next slide. I'm having a slight problem here with the slides. So what I'm going to do is I'll stop sharing and change the slides and then share the screen again. I think I'm going to have to do this. Sorry about that, everybody. Right. Okay. Right. Here we go. So hopefully it'll work from now on. So let me just outline our brief from the British Embassy. It was first to analyse industry sectoral strengths in Galway and Mayo, and existing business and research and civic connections to the UK. And our second task was to identify UK cities or regions that have complementary strengths to Galway and Mayo, and where there's scope for further cooperation, not just in trade, but potentially also in investment or research or civic connections. And the third task was to recommend a programme of work to increase economic connections between Galway and Mayo and selected UK regions. So let me just highlight some of the main industry sectoral strengths in Galway and Mayo, and the previous speakers, of course, have highlighted these as well. I'd like to focus on relative industry strengths. So, for example, while the hospitality and tourism industry is a very important sector in Galway and Mayo, it's also important throughout Ireland. And this report's focus is on what sets this region apart from others in economic terms. And the most obvious sector is, of course, medtech. So this is a map of Galway's medtech cluster. It was created by my colleague, Professor John Breslin. And while it's a couple of years old now, it does a great job, I think, of showing visually what an industry cluster looks like. There's many foreign and indigenous company names and logos you can see there, clustered in one geographical area. And very importantly, there's a range of infrastructural supports for that industry. It includes NUI Galway, GMIT, specialist research institutes like Currum, innovation centres and industrial estates. But what this map does not show is the strength of networks within this cluster. Industry associations, for example, events, awards, the formation of new venture teams, and career progression, all of which are much easier with geographical proximity. And as this infrastructure has developed, we've seen indigenous medtech venture creation surpass that of foreign subsidiary starts. And you can see that in the chart on the left. And this growth is most obvious around Galway City, but there's activity in medtech throughout the region. Although, as was being mentioned before, Mayo has arguably a greater concentration of pharma than medtech. So the map on the right, which was created by the Insight Centre for Data Analytics at NUI Galway, uses registered company data to show the distribution of core medtech businesses across the region. And you can see the concentration of activity in and around Galway City. In the report, we also take a detailed look at two other clusters, ICT and the creative sector. And we suggest how these clusters might evolve in the future. And here there's both a challenge and an opportunity. And this is to encourage the emergence of what we might call hybrid businesses that operate in the intersections between medtech, ICT, and the creative industries. And often it's these interdisciplinary ventures that spawn whole new sectors. Now I'd like to turn to our work in the UK. My colleague Mark Hart and his team at Aston University have reviewed a range of prior studies on industry clusters across the UK. And this has helped us to generate a short list of city regions that have at least some parallels with Galway and Mayo in terms of their industry clusters and sectoral strengths. And we considered all of these carefully. And as you all know by now, we highlight one region as perhaps having the most potential for developing deeper relationships with Mayo and Galway. And funnily enough, it's on the same latitude as Galway and Mayo. And this is the Leeds City region. And you can see I've marked it there with a larger star than the other stars. So Leeds City region is home to 3 million people, much larger, of course, than Galway and Mayo, which is about 400,000 people. And it has hundreds of medtech and digital health businesses. And it's also strong in the creative sector. And in some ways, it's ahead of Galway and Mayo in terms of developing businesses that cross boundaries between medtech and ICT and the creative sector. So there might be something for us to learn there. But at the same time, it might have something to learn from Mayo and Galway about deepening links within an industry cluster. But there's another reason for homing in on Leeds City region. And that's the deep historic and family ties between Galway and Mayo and Leeds and Bradford and their hinterland. Since before the famine, immigrants from Galway and Mayo have been making their way to Leeds and Bradford, in many cases never to return. Here's a photograph of the opening of the Leeds Irish Centre 50 years ago this year. And the sheer size of the room tells you something about the size of the diaspora. And on the right, you can see Ciarán Cannon, TD for East Galway and Minister for the Diaspora and International Development in the last Irish government, embracing a cousin he had never met on a visit to Leeds. And I think this photograph, it's symbolic really of what we're trying to do here, to join the dots. The dots are there, we just have to make the connections and reach across. And there's many dots to connect. So some of these I've already mentioned. For example, learning about how to develop sustainable entrepreneurial ecosystems from multiple industry clusters that are currently somewhat isolated. But there's other opportunities for mutual learning as well, such as how to rebuild the hospitality industry post-COVID, how to build on our historic family ties, improve transport connections, and strengthen research links. So with that, I'll hand back to our MC.
Thank you, Professor Levy. And as I understand it, a link to the report has been put into the chat box for people to download while they're on this meeting, this event. If we were in ordinary times, we would all be at a function, possibly even enjoying a bit of dinner, but we're not. I think we made history in Chamber last week. It was the first time we ever had a Christmas lunch without there being any food. So that'll give an idea of where we are. But many people wanted to contribute to today. And there now follows a series of vignettes, snippets from a range of those involved in policy, in politics, and in business, in both Mayo Galway and Leeds Bradford. So we'll begin with Mayor Mike Cubbard of Galway City Council.
Galway has many accolades as a city, a micro city, a European capital culture, and UNESCO City of Film, to name but a few. We have proven time and time again that when we put our mind to something, we achieve so much. I, as Mayor of Galway City, look forward to working with my colleagues in Galway County and Mayo to build on those collective accolades and hopefully enhance the industry and build on these opportunities to develop business and create job opportunities here in the region.
I'm Roger Marsh. I'm chair of the Leeds City Region Enterprise Partnership. I also chair something called NP11, which is the 11 LEPs across the north of England, and I'm the vice chair of the LEP network nationally. And I'm delighted to be participating in this discussion to strengthen the ties between Galway and Mayo area with Leeds City Region. I'll tell you a little bit about Leeds City Region. Situated right at the heart of England, a £70 billion economy that in lots of ways mirrors the whole of the UK. We have strength in financial professional services, second only to London, the largest area in employment terms of manufacturing, home to 10 universities, some of which are world-leading research universities, and 14 further education colleges. So a huge, variable but vibrant economy with a large skills base. That said, we want to try and transform our economy from something that is more than just SME growth done better, but actually to develop and expand an innovation-driven entrepreneurial economy that enables businesses to compete on the global stage, thereby attracting talent and in the areas where we have strength. I mentioned in my opening remarks about our health tech agenda, and on the back of a science and innovation audit a few years ago for the UK government, we were able to demonstrate that we had particular strengths in this arena. And it will come to no surprise to those of you listening that 7 of the key bits of the NHS are headquartered in the city region. Taken together, the decision-making centre for national policy of some £130 billion per annum funding to the NHS, commissioning leadership and digital advancement, and hence the reason why we believe we have some strength in this arena. That's not limited. We also have strengths in biopharma and in digital health. So it's important that a region like yours combines with a region like ours to see whether together we can achieve something even greater. We touched on the creative sector. Again, you may be aware that 2 years ago, as part of a national competition, we were successful in securing the national headquarters for the publisher broadcaster Channel 4. And whilst itself an important win but in employment terms quite small, what it has done is help us develop the wider creative ecosystem such that we now have quite a number of new businesses, I think 10 to date, that have opened up in our region in response to the fact that Channel 4 is now headquartered in Leeds and in the city regions. So again, I think areas where we can perhaps collaborate to mutual advantage. So our ambition about an innovation-driven ecosystem is about bringing forward those businesses that are scalable to global size and significance, that solve some of society's most challenging problems. Our entrepreneurial ecosystem and healthcare cluster will continue to work to develop international partnerships and forge strong relationships with partners across the globe, including our friends in Ireland, to work towards addressing some of those pressing healthcare and wider societal challenges. Thank you for listening, and I hope the rest of your discussion is productive.
Sustainable employment in the county towns helps build communities and the regions. As a result of having two fantastic third-level institutions in our county, we have a talented pool of new graduates. It's incumbent on us to make sure that opportunities are there for those individuals, so we maintain them in our counties. Initiatives such as this allows us to explore new business opportunities and to create employment in our communities.
Morning, my name is Councillor Rennie Mary. I represent Mayo County Council in the Ballina municipal area. I've been a councillor actually for over 25 years now in Mayo. And I'm delighted to be part of this launch today and wholeheartedly support the joining of the DOTS initiative. For those of you who know me, you will know that I am very passionate about the importance of connecting and engaging with our diaspora. Our work at Mayo County Council has been to the forefront of diaspora development and engagement indeed for many years, and that is one recognition that we have. County Mayo at both ends of the migration cycle increasingly recognise the value that diaspora populations bring to the development efforts of our county. Mayo at present boasts over 3.5 million people worldwide with ancestral claims to this county. Beyond remittances, they generate diaspora members, they fulfill a key development role in their countries, and some are major investors in critical and in industries. We have some generous philanthropists and first movers in the growth of important sectors such as tourism. As a county and a council, we have a diaspora strategy in place for many, many years, and we strive to lead the way internationally, engaging with the modern diaspora population. And that's again something we're very, very proud of. Initiatives such as the Mayo World Convention and Mayo Day have been game changers in terms of real and meaningful connection. And that was the first again for Mayo. In conjunction with the Department of Foreign Affairs, Mayo County Council have a comprehensive lineup of events taking place for our diaspora this Christmas from the 21st to the 31st of December. Now this is a very important part of the calendar, especially this year. And it's going to be termed as To Be Irish at Christmas campaign. That's what the launch will be, To Be Irish at Christmas campaign. And all is available on mayo.ie. Indeed, I've had the privilege over many years in local government to work on a variety of initiatives and meet with Mayo communities across the world. Strong Mayo hubs right across the globe from Chicago, New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Cleveland, and closer to home, Manchester, London, Leeds, and Bradford. The connection with Leeds and Bradford and Mayo is very, very strong. And indeed, a large number of people from my own area, Bunnycon and Ballina, have settled in Leeds and have done very, very well. And those people we're proud of. And now we have their ancestors and visiting us, and they're all part of the Mayo Association. It's one that's, as I said, is particularly strong. In fact, the diaspora connections between my hometown of Ballina and this wider environs is really significant, with the high percentage of, as I said, population in Leeds, and they all trace their roots to the area. While much work has been done in this space, particularly in the area of tourism development, the Joining the Dots programme provides an even greater opportunity to promote economic links between our regions, and that is something that I welcome. I'm delighted to see a partnership between Mayo Galway and the collaboration with the British Embassy to continue to grow and develop a good economic and trading relationship between the UK and the West of Ireland. Now, can I just take this opportunity to wish you all a peaceful, a safe, and a very happy Christmas. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is JP Gilmartin, and I'm the president of Galway Chamber of Commerce. In Galway Chamber, we have developed a new strategy that will enable us to play a key role in the development of Galway over the course of this decade and the years beyond, setting in motion a plan that will take the Chamber to its 250th birthday as the key driver of a modern, sustainable and functional Galway. In keeping with our strategy, the Chamber welcomes initiatives such as this joint collaboration between the British Embassy in Ireland and NUI Galway, which explores the opportunities for trade, expansion and partnership between regions in the UK and the West of Ireland, specifically the Leeds, Bradford city regions and counties Galway and Mayo. Galway Chamber is delighted to work with all the stakeholders in this initiative to explore and enhance trade and partnership opportunities between the economic operators operating in both regions. Galway Chamber is looking forward to playing its part to realise the ambitions of this great initiative. Many thanks.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Kelly, Chief Executive of Galway County Council. I'm delighted to join you this morning for the virtual launch of Joining the Dots, a joint report by the British Embassy in Ireland and NUI Galway. The most recent business statistics show that employment in Galway grew by 36% between 2015 and 2017, with double-digit growths in many sectors. However, these employment gains are weighted towards Galway City, and while we applaud the effort that has resulted in this progress, it is our ambition in Galway County Council to work with all of our partners to try and grow employment in the same way across relevant sectors in our county towns. This report is really important as a springboard for the creation of sustainable jobs, and we welcome this initiative and look forward to the opportunities it will present for our region in the future.
Hello, my name is Martin Stowe, the Chairman and Director of Nexus and the MIT REAP Team Champion for the Leeds City region. I'm absolutely delighted to be sending a message of support for the Joining the Dots initiative, linking the UK and Irish regional economies. This initiative is more important than ever as the UK leaves the European Union at the end of this year. Nexus is a dynamic, innovative community and hub connecting entrepreneurs, startups, SMEs and corporate businesses to the world-class research expertise at the University of Leeds. We've been operational now for around 18 months and have facilitated over 30 new and impactful strategic collaborations between our member businesses and the university. These collaborations have the potential to crack some of the biggest economic and societal challenges of our age. The University of Leeds is a research-intensive Russell Group university and an anchor institution within this region. We contribute over 1.3 billion to the UK economy. As a part of the prestigious Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Programme, a 2-year programme run by the Sloan Management School at MIT, we've been working in collaboration with senior stakeholders and partner organisations across the region to launch 2 new initiatives that will drive innovation-driven enterprises. Innovation-driven enterprises are startups that have enormous growth potential and global potential and can drive the region's economy within the SME community. I passionately believe that universities have a key and pivotal role to play in driving economic growth, and that is especially true in this post-COVID recovery period. It's really encouraging to see the synergies between Galway, Mayo and the Leeds City region, particularly with our strengths in medtech and digital health. The Leeds City region health ecosystem is unique for its degree of local connectivity, its national reach, and the collaborations seen across private, public and voluntary sectors. I hope that this event and the report launch will act as a strong foundation for an economic relationship between our two regions. Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments. And I think the range of comments really reflects the enthusiasm and the authenticity on both sides of the water to translate this collaboration into meaningful results. We now move on to a discussion to bring this a little more to life, and I'm delighted to be joined by 4 panellists. So we have joining us Brian Archer, Director of Economic Services at the West Yorkshire Combined Authority and Leeds City Region Enterprise Partnership. We have Councillor Neil McNeilis, former Mayor of Galway and Chair of the Economic, Cultural and Community Strategic Policy Committee at Galway City Council, and also he is a member of the EU Northwest Regional Assembly. We have Elaine Moyles joining us. She is acting head of the Enterprise Unit at the Mayo Local Enterprise Office, and Steve Box, Global Business Development Director at XLab. So I'd like to welcome you all. And Brian, I'm going to start with yourself, if that's all right. One of your colleagues in West Yorkshire Combined Local Authority, Councillor Susan Hinchcliffe, said in a statement recently that as West Yorkshire becomes a mayoral combined authority in 2021, it's important that our future priorities for investment and growth reflect our region and the needs of our residents. Looking beyond the current pandemic to the recovery, the new spatial priority areas reaffirm our commitment to building an inclusive economy that works for everyone. So Brian, how important is it for you and the combined authority to have the right policies in place to support enterprise development and to support the type of successful partnership we're proposing today?
Thank you, Kenny. Yeah, I mean, on a personal level, I think it's important to just recognise some of the challenges in starting and growing a business, and then I'll come on to the organisational response. From my own perspective, I've started and run a small business. I've also been a director in a £5 billion company with 130,000 staff in 30 countries around the world. And what I can tell you is that, you know, running a small business is significantly more demanding and more taxing than being a director in a large corporation. And the whole startup process is a particular challenge. And I think having that empathy and knowing and understanding what it's like to be wondering how you're going to pay the wages at 4 o'clock in the morning gives you an empathy with the client group. And I think it's important that, you know, that we do actually revere entrepreneurs. You know, they should be highly prized, but entrepreneurship's not for everyone. And to succeed, individuals have to have the motivation, they have to have the ability and skills, they have to have good ideas that have been tested in the marketplace, and they've got to have access to the resources. And small and medium-sized businesses make up to something like 99% of the business stock. They employ over 16 million people, so they're a crucial part of our economy. And I think, you know, the support that we're offering really is about changing lives. It is about making a difference, and there are social and economic benefits of entrepreneurship. Why is it important to the combined authority? Well, a thriving small business sector creates wealth as well as well-being, and it brings great, you know, economic, social, and environmental benefits to society. And innovation's key to that. Our recovery strategy focuses on 4 particular areas. We're currently in dialogue with government to secure some additional resources. And those 4 priority areas are good jobs and resilient businesses, skills and training, accelerated infrastructure investment, as well as inclusive growth and a sustainable environment. Colleagues mentioned earlier about health and the creative industries. Underpinning that strategy, we've got 4 propositions. We've got health innovation, transforming lives through digital technology, transition to net zero, and also entrepreneurship. And if I just take health as an example, you know, we've got a really strong cluster of health technology businesses in the region. We've got 7 health headquarters within the Leeds City region, and a fantastic concentration of higher education institutions with access to all that research and collaboration. And the region's also a centre for £130 billion worth of NHS commissioning. So huge potential market, particularly for medtech. And I guess what I would say with regards to joining up the dots, I think, you know, we don't operate as an island. I think the real strengths are in knowledge and skills. And I think as colleagues know, you know, the only sustainable source of competitive advantage is to leverage knowledge and expertise from across boundaries. And sometimes that brings tensions, but also it brings, you know, great rewards. And I think by collaborating and working together, you know, we can be stronger together. We've seen good examples of that with the creative sector and the creative cluster we've got in the region. You'll be aware that Channel 4 decided to relocate to the Leeds City region, and that's helped to create a creative industries cluster around that significant inward investment. Absolutely support the concept of joining up the dots, sharing that knowledge and leveraging that expertise for the greater good of both Mayo and Galway and the Leeds City region and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, for that. And I think one of the bits that I've made a note of here is that figure of 130 billion. It just gives the sense of the size and scale of opportunity in one sector alone. I'd like to move for a second to Councillor Neil McNeilis. And one of the bits that I didn't mention, Neil, about yourself is that you are a business owner yourself. So I'm sure you'll resonate with Brian's comments. But from your perspective as both an elected official for the city and with your regional and EU hat on, I'm asking you the same question. The importance of good policy influencing business growth and supporting these types of initiatives.
Yeah, Kenny, thanks very much. And again, can I just congratulate absolutely everybody today for this. It's a really good thing that's happening because, I mean, especially with the challenges now that we have faced, it's great to see that we're going to have new economic relationships, new networks, new supply chains, and new friendships that were already there, and it's existing ones. So it's very apt to have it. As a member of the EU Committee of Regions as well, I can just say that my UK colleagues are going to be absolutely lost that were set with me on the Committee of Regions. They were always the first guys with policy debate, and ironically, we're probably amongst the primary proponents of new policy in the past and EU-wide legislation. So it's important that we're going to be working together in this spirit. I suppose, Kenny, you know, you're right, the importance of good policy in influencing business growth and supporting these type of initiatives. It's very evidence-based that what we have today is that this forum, we need to have good decision-making happening. And to achieve this, we need to have shared ideas on how we can actually get that policy down to it. With the Regional Assembly, we've just done, we'd say the body has produced its very first regional spatial economic strategy for the region. And that also has now put together a metropolitan plan for Galway City region. And we know that the city is going to evolve and get bigger. We look at Galway probably doubling in size in the next 15 years. So those strategies need to be looked at, but they also need to be understood by policymakers and business people, and why some of the decisions that we make for it. I suppose when I sit on the Committee of Regions, and I'm just going to give this an outline for this and a potential for us at the moment, is in 2013, Ireland had nearly 13% unemployment rate. And in 2014, the EU adopted a growth strategy that required the EU member states like Ireland to support increased levels in R&D, innovation, ICT and SME support. And at the start of 2020, just before COVID hit us, our unemployment rate was down to 4%. So the EU now has a new growth strategy, which is a green one. And we're preparing for this in the region and also in Galway. And by 2027, it can be a leading centre of green innovation. And that's using the port, it's putting wind out of Mayo and Galway. So there's all of that as well that we can work on. But I suppose as well is that ecosystems just don't happen like Galway. I mean, there needs to be a lot of jigsaws, or as you put it, joining the dots coming together. And Galway for us has always been a city of tolerance, diversity, innovation and creativity. And that's something I think we can share with, when you look at Leeds, they all have that as well. So, I mean, and Mayo as well, I mean, diversity, innovation and creativity, that's something that we've all shared well together. So I think that we can do a lot with that for that. I suppose the other thing is that we are a victim of our success in Galway, Kenny, as you know, for a long time. Sometimes it's attributed to good policy. Everybody wants to move here. And sometimes it's actually from the lack of policy that we've succeeded. The Porter Shed evolved itself from actually just the brilliant people that were in the city that pulled it together, and a wider ecosystem that has developed. And when you look at that slide that they show there of John Breslin's slide of all of those businesses, that's what evolved first. And I think, again, we can work with that for that. I suppose the last thing I'll just say is that we're very lucky at the moment, is that we have a very good working relationship with Mayo. And I believe that because we can actually work together as the city and the county with Mayo and in the region, this is actually going to help us. And with Knock Airport, remember, Galway City, Galway County, Mayo, we all contribute to Knock Airport to make it survive for us. So that would actually bring more people in for us. So that's where policy comes into it, because it means that we can then look at the reasons that we need to have sustainability in the future and actually looking at new ideas for that. So the other thing I'll just say is that this is a very good time for us as well in the region, because the region is now looking at as being considered in an international pilot initiative with the OECD on innovation ecosystems. So I would say that this is the right timing for this, and I think that my opinion there, Kenny, would be that we're bringing all of these policies together will actually make it easier for us to actually then bigger planning at the end of the day. Thanks.
Very good, and thank you, Neil, for that. And I think two pieces. First of all, for those who don't know, on the line from the UK, Portershed is a co-working space for scaling tech companies here in Galway, and something we're very proud of. And I'm delighted, Neil, that you mentioned Knock Airport, because I know from conversations with Joe Gilmore, the Managing Director of Knock Airport, when I talked to him about this initiative and what we're hoping to achieve with this, the conversation very quickly led to regional connectivity and how we can try and enhance that from a perspective of Ireland West Airport, Knock and Leeds. Now, speaking of Knock, I'm heading to Mayo next, and Elaine Moyles. Elaine, from a Mayo County Council perspective, you're clearly working with businesses on a daily basis, many of whom are exporting and trading with the UK already, and want to successfully grow that market share, but also with new businesses hoping to leverage opportunities from initiatives such as this. What's your sense of the existing landscape of trade and also the potential for this opportunity? Elaine, I don't know, are you on mute, Elaine, or? Muted. Can't hear you for a second, Elaine. What I might do is I might just pop to Steve Box in XLab, and maybe, Elaine, I don't know, is it your headphones or mute? We'll try and solution with yourself, if you don't mind, for a moment. And Steve, if I go to yourself from XLab, so your company is Leeds-based, and it's in the health tech life sciences space specifically, and I had a great conversation with Steve in prep for this. You enable connectivity between laboratories, and from a market coverage perspective, your business has 100% of England and Scotland market, with serious inroads made into Wales. But you've also had your first direct contract in Ireland in recent weeks, so the timing of this conversation is brilliant. My question for you is, as a scaling business leader, it comes back to the policy environment and the type of supports that you need to scale quicker, or indeed the barriers that you might need to be removed to enable the growth of your business into Ireland from the recent experiences you've had, Steve.
Yes, well, first of all, thank you so much for the invite to be a panelist. I think this is the first time that I've actually worn a suit and a pair of slippers at the same time, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, thank you. So onto your question, if I can just kind of dive into a little bit of the detail of what we do. So like you say, we connect labs together, and that's really to facilitate easy information exchange, to remove the admin burden, and to speed up the turnaround of a patient's result. And laboratories have to procure specialist tests from other laboratories. So across UK and Ireland, there are at least 200 labs. But not every lab can deliver tests. So there's this really simple mechanism where many labs will refer to many other labs to procure those specialist services. And one of the drivers for Irish laboratories adopting our solution was so that they could have an electronic exchange with the labs that they procure testing services from in the UK. But there were two blockers that were a real challenge for us. The first is the fact that even though patient data if it's on paper, an Irish patient's data will be stored ultimately in a filing cabinet in a UK hospital. When lab directors shift to an electronic or IT solution, there's a concern about where that patient data is going to be stored. And because it's on UK, because we're a UK business, there was a concern about, well, what, you know, what's the privacy and protection of Irish patients' data? But then Brexit added a whole new element to that about the uncertainty of transacting with UK labs, both in terms of the protection of patients' data, but also on the point of actually, can we still procure testing services from the UK? And so it just, for us, the challenge was that it almost clouded the decision-making process in uncertainty and delayed things. As you can see, we did eventually get a decision, but I think it just took a lot longer than it should, and it also meant that the decision-making, we had to work hard with leaders in local laboratories, whereas actually without that uncertainty, it may have been that we could have had more success at a national level with the health service executive.
Brilliant, thank you, Steve, for that. And it's interesting. So if I was to summarise your points there, it's really about bringing clarity to the transaction process between Ireland and the UK as we move into the Brexit environment, because we know in whatever shape or form it will happen, there will be some form of an agreement, but it's removing that uncertainty and bringing clarity to the process. So thank you for that. I'm going to try Elaine once more. Are we good? Elaine, are the gremlins gone? Excellent, we can hear you now. So I don't know, do you recall the question, or do you want me to go back to it, just in terms of, I suppose, your sense of the existing landscape and the potential for opportunity with your Mayo County Council hat on?
Well, in fact, I think Steve covered it quite aptly there in terms of the level of uncertainty that's out there for entrepreneurs and business people. So it makes it very hard to plan. And that would certainly maybe deter some people to be thinking of further investment in the UK. However, the UK is still there after December 31st, and it's still our biggest trading partner. And a report like this and the follow-on activities that we will all be working on is really crucial to maintain that connectivity and to showcase that there's opportunities there. It's an old adage, but it's apt. People do business with people. And something like this that facilitates new entrepreneurs or established businesses to meet other businesses in an area that shares similar sectors that they're growing into, or cultural values that we both share with our diaspora engagement is crucial. And separately, from a Mayo County Council perspective, what we would do help businesses build up their resilience is it focuses on 3 key agendas, and that's innovation, competitiveness, and market diversification. And I can clearly see from this report a pathway that those key agendas can link into in terms of those sectors that's identified, and how we can all work together to strengthen our Mayo businesses and Galway businesses in these key areas, and learn from the enterprises based in the Leeds and Bradford area and what they have brought to their business communities that we can replicate here in the West region.
Thank you, Elaine, for that. And Councillor Annie May Reip referred to, and I think it brought great authenticity to the diaspora conversation. How, in your view, can we build on this more to generate more economic activity for both sides of this partnership, particularly given in Mayo you're seen to be role models at a national level in diaspora engagement?
Well, and thank you for that compliment as well. It's something that in Mayo County Council we work very, very hard with in terms of that diaspora engagement. And Councillor Reip is representative of her colleagues in that, and the other councillors all striving towards that. And what we do here, we have a dedicated diaspora officer, Mags Connell, in the council that keeps that engagement going. We see that engagement as it's a two-way relationship. So equally, we ask the diaspora networks to come back to us and see how we can help them with anything here locally, or how we can develop that relationship. Crucially, it's not just a network for us, it's an extension of our Mayo community in different geographic locations. And Mayo Day is a perfect example of that. And I think those sorts of further initiatives, and just trying to grasp onto opportunities that we can both work on together. But most importantly, we have to keep the relationships going, and we have to keep the trade missions going, and visiting one another and keeping that spirit alive, in particular the strong Mayo for Sam spirit that you'll see every time it rolls around, and you never know where you might see a Mayo flag or a Mayo jersey around the world.
Very good, and I think many people have seen on social media the side of the building in Chicago this week. The influence and the footprint of the diaspora is something phenomenal. I'm conscious of time; we've just gone a little over the hour. Brian, I'd like to come to you with one question, if you don't mind. And Galway has been very successful in creating enterprise clusters, and as Councillor McNeilis referred to, the likes of Portershed, but also both universities in developing clusters in medical devices, medtech development, etc. There's so much potential for the future in a post-Brexit era, with green technology has been referenced, disruptive technology, and so on. How can we, in your view, as closest trading partners, work better together to leverage opportunities and really build on this?
Thanks, Kenny. Just to echo what Elaine and other speakers have said, it is about values, it's about relationships. It's also about knowing where the best practice and expertise is. You know, do we know where, you know, the world leading research is in each of the universities and what the areas of expertise are? How do we improve the connectivity between all the different agencies in that business support ecosystem? I think it's really important. But at the end of the day, it does come down to personal relationships. If we're going to join the dots up successfully, it's making sure that we put the small business person at the heart of any collaboration, agreeing a shared vision for what we want to achieve. And really, it does come down to trust, openness, transparency, and that desire to share information for the greater good. And it is about building those relationships. Not much to add to that, really. I think that's what it comes down to.
Very good. It comes back to Elaine's point nearly of people do business with people. My last question goes to yourself, Neil, Councillor McNeilis. As Mayor Mike Hubbard mentioned in his recording, Galway has great ambitions for growth, and you said yourself, you know, that the population is set to rise over the next 2 decades, and we want to increase trade with many markets, including the UK. In your position as chair of the Economic Development Committee, the Strategic Policy Committee of Galway City, what would you like to see happen next, and what, in your view, are the next steps?
Yeah, I think what was said earlier on was that the dots are there. We just have to make the connections now. I mean, so this is a unique initiative. So in the past, we've developed initiatives and made political declarations in advance of exploring actual business and industry synergies. But however, in recent years, we've carefully nurtured some strategic economic connections with cities, all our sister cities that we have in Galway, and countries. But we've started work with China now. But I suppose the report clearly demonstrates an interconnectivity between the sectors and the clusters across our region and the UK regions. And interesting, as I said earlier on, this region, the Northwestern Region Assembly, which Mayo and Galway again are part of, has recently commenced a dialogue on clusters and smart specialisation. So we're also being considered for that international pilot with the OECD on innovation ecosystem. So the timing is absolutely perfect. So one of the report recommendations considers really stimulating exchanges. And I think we should really consider sponsoring or supporting maybe an initial, maybe mini summit, either physically or virtually, between the city region here and our colleagues in the UK. And maybe, like, I can push that at City Hall level, but I suppose, is that something the Chamber, I'll ask you now, Kenny, is that something the Chamber, NUIG or the embassies might like to drive as well? Is that mini summit?
Absolutely, and listen, it's a perfect question and a nice segue into the next stage. The plan is, we know there's so much potential, but we can't broad stroke everything. So we have to focus on where we think the best levers of opportunity are. And the plan for 2021 is to have 3 focused events focusing on different sectors where you can bring industry leaders and the policy people who can influence change at political level together and actually do a little bit of a deeper dive so that we can have a more meaningful conversation, and actually then to say, right, okay, we've identified a gap or a potential synergy, let's move to the next stage of actually transacting on that now. So listen, I think the comments are all leaning in that direction, and there's a tremendous enthusiasm from the panelists. So I'd like to thank you all for participating in this, and I think it's a sense that the next stage will be going deeper, where we'll all have you back, but in more focused sessions related to your area of expertise. And I think the other bit is very much about meeting and connectivity. So whether it's we're all back on Galway and Leeds, Bradford, or in Mayo for Mayo Day, or there's a Galway Day, heaven forbid, or whatever else we create, I do think that is also a next step. So we've heard from many voices over the last hour in general, and we now have a job of work to do to deliver on the ambitions and the recommendations in this report. I'd like to thank Professor Levy and Dr. Giblin for their work on this, Ambassador Johnston and his colleagues, Harry, Anthony and Catherine, my own team in Chamber, and my colleagues from Chambers and Mayo and local authorities on both sides of the water for really progressing this. And for closing remarks, I'll come back to you just to do a final closure, but for closing remarks, I'm now handing over to Catherine Page, Deputy to the British Ambassador in the Embassy in Dublin. So Catherine, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kenny, and to all the panelists and speakers today. I thought that was a really insightful and inspiring discussion. And it was great to hear such strong commitment, including from Ministers Naughton and Coveney, to joining the dots between us. In particular, I want to thank Professor Jonathan Levy and his colleagues for the fantastic report, which I think is going to be a huge asset as we look to strengthen the connections between Galway and Mayo and all parts of the UK. In the British Embassy in Ireland, we stand ready to support you make those connections. Whether you're a medtech company that's looking to expand into a new market, or part of the vibrant creative industry and art scene that we know connects us in so many important ways across these islands. And we're also really excited about the scope to refresh and reinforce the already deep connections between the west of Ireland and the Leeds Bradford regions. So I thought that was a really, really positive and exciting discussion today. Why does it matter? Because the UK and Ireland are nearest neighbours, and there's so much we can learn from one another. There's so much economic opportunity, but also, as I think we've heard really poignantly today, we're linked as friends and in many cases as family. And we hope that today will be just the start in a process of unlocking that economic opportunity, but also those friendships between us. And so we can look into a mini summit and certainly some more events in the new year, God willing, in person, whether in Galway or Mayo or in Leeds or Bradford. And we look forward to seeing you at one of those in 2021, which we hope will be a better year for travel and for connectivity between us. So thank you really again to everybody who's taken part, to Galway Chamber, and for helping us join the dots digitally between us. And we hope for more in-person dots to be joined in the new year. So with that, I'll hand back to you, Kenny.
Thank you, Catherine. I think a lovely way to leave it, the more in-person dots. I look forward to working with you all in 2021 on progressing these discussions to actions. It's been, for many, a very, very difficult year. It's been an exhausting year for many in business. Some businesses have thrived, some businesses have really struggled. And it's a very mixed bag. And I think many of us will look forward to crawling under a rock in the next few weeks and just hiding for a few days and switching off and relaxing. So I wish you all a very happy Christmas and hopefully a prosperous COVID-free New Year. And we look forward to following on after this. You'll see a lot on social over the next few weeks in terms of campaign. The vignettes we've seen will be socialized, but also we have comments from many other interested parties who haven't been able to be part of this session today. So for now, I just bid you all adieu. Have a lovely Christmas, and we'll chat to you more in the new year on this topic. Thank you.